It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can get a hold of me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Okay, today we have a celebrity, a real genuine, real celebrity, Angie Harrington. She's laughing, but she really is. From Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She has a huge following, tremendous following, and all of her stuff from being on Bravo TV. You could find her there at Angie Harrington on Instagram. And she's just starting out. She's a newbie on TikTok, Angie.Harrington on number 2 on TikTok. She's just starting out on TikTok. And she's got a fascinating new direction in her life with paranormal. She's got a PhD in metaphysics with an emphasis on ufology. Fascinating stuff. Her YouTube, her Instagram, you should definitely follow her Instagram. She's got this incredible fashion style, okay? Just these different outfits all the time. I'd say just incredible. No, really, it's really is a pleasure to watch. As a matter of fact, here in Tampa this weekend is Fashion Week, and I got tickets. I didn't know I'm going to get down there. But I'm totally into that kind of stuff, and she's just got this great fashion sense. Angie Harrington, are you there?
Hi, Ed. Yes, I'm here. I would love to see you walk the runway at Tampa Fashion Week.
Me too. I got press passes, but I don't want to make it down there.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's an honor to be here, Ed. I've been a longtime listener. I love all things conspiracy, and isn't it funny how conspiracies are starting to feel like they're becoming reality? So I've been listening to you for a long time, and we've kind of had a back and forth conversation. And finally you said, why don't you do the podcast? And so here we are, and I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. We were kind of like friends behind the scene on Instagram and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us about yourself. Now, background as a dancer and a model, and then how'd you get involved with Real Housewives?
Great question. So I always grew up in the performing arts. I was a competitive dancer all through high school. I ended up being a teacher, a choreographer, and eventually went as far as you can go here in Utah, which was dancing for the Utah Jazz, the NBA. And that was really fun. But after a while, you just after years and years of rehearsals and being paid next to nothing, I decided it was time to move on, and I had a family. And so that was my background in dancing. And then from there, it was a natural progression after I had my first baby. Well, I still want to work. I'm a driven person. What am I going to do now? So I got into modeling and acting because it was still kind of the performing arts in a way, and very artistic and creative. That's who I am. And so I modeled for about 15 years here in Utah, mostly in the Salt Lake City area, and did some acting, did some films and commercials and voiceover work. And then I got a divorce, unfortunately, and once my children, I was a single mom, and once my children got into full-time school, I decided that's when blogs were really big, like the fashion blogs. So I thought, well, I got to do something. I'm going to have all this time on my hands. And so I started with a blog, and I just stayed with it, and it ended up doing really well, and I'm very grateful for it. It helped me pay the bills as a single mom, along with the modeling and acting gigs and things like that. And so through that experience, I was able to attend Fashion Week, work with some really cool fashion and beauty brands that I never would have dreamed I would have worked with, which that's the power of the internet, because I didn't live in a market where, you could really pursue a career in fashion. I was in Salt Lake City. And so I was so grateful for that opportunity, and it led me to places and opened doors, and it landed me somehow on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I think my background in the industry, and then a friend who had been on the first season of the show was really pushing me to audition. And I was like, absolutely not. There's no way. I watched the show. It looks so toxic, that's not who I am, I love to have fun, and I have a big personality, but I hate drama. And so it was just an absolute no for me. And I was pregnant at the time. So I got remarried and had a third child with my second husband. But so then the next year, my friend came back to me and I had the baby, and she said, please do the show. I need a friend on the show. I need an ally. And I said, fine, I'll audition. I'll never get it, right? They have probably auditioned 1,000 women in the Salt Lake City area since season 1 to now. And I just thought, there's no way I'll get it. So I auditioned, and then they wanted me back for another audition, and then another audition. And then after a series of about 3 months, the casting director called me and said, you got it, and your best friend got it. Another friend who hadn't been on the show yet. I was like, well, now I have to do it because my best friend and I were both cast. This feels like the universe, right?
Right.
So I did it, and within like 2 weeks of filming, I was like, this is not for me. Like, it's worse than you can imagine, the level of anxiety and drama and chaos. And as someone who is very living in like good, authentic energy is important. And I'm not saying some housewives may be able to do it. No judgment there. For me, it just felt like consistent chaos. And so I left on season 2 because I was like, I got in a fight with the friend who tried to get me to come on right away. And that was really toxic. And then the next, I made friends with a girl named Heather Gay on the show, and we actually had more of a natural connection than my original friend who wanted me to do the show. And so season 3, we were on a trip in Norway, I believe, and she said, please come back for season 3, please, I need you, same story, different person, you know. And she was like, you just fought with the worst person to fight with, I promise it's fun. So I go back season 3, and sure enough, it's miserable for me. But it opened doors. I was able to talk about things I feel passionate about. You know, People magazine has done features on autism. My little 6-year-old's autistic. I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not done Housewives. We were able to help support the LGBTQ community on the show. My husband has a trans child, and so, you know, regardless of where you stand politically or religiously, I think it's important that these people at least be heard and try to be understood, you know. And so we tried to lead with love in that, and we ended up raising about $3 million to help, because here in Utah, it's a very conservative state, very religious state. So we have a problem here of families who end up having children who are in the LGBTQ community, and a lot of these kids will end up committing suicide because they feel like they're going to be such a letdown because of the religious pressure. Yeah. And so we were supporting a charity that helps kind of bridge that gap to avoid suicide, help people understand each other. So that was important to us, and we were able to shine a really good light on that charity called Encircle. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, heartbreaking. You know, here you got, you know, people struggling already, you know what I mean? Already prejudiced, already struggles in your life, your own emotional stuff. And then this focus on them, you know, what bathroom are you going to use? You know, just imagine going through that every day just for nothing.
It's tough. And I understand it's hard for a lot of people to understand if it doesn't affect you directly. I mean, when we first found out my husband's child was trans, you know, it wasn't the dream we had for our child, but as you talk to them and understand what they're going through, you have so much more compassion for their journey, you know. So we just hoped that it would bring more understanding, you know, rather than division.
A little boy with the autism, I've seen him, a beautiful kid, man. He could be a model, right? What about, are any of your kids modeling or doing anything like that? Dancing?
Well, that's funny. Yeah. So I've been lucky. All 3 of my boys are good looking, and they've had offers in television and film and to audition for parts, because both their parents are on. So my ex-husband and his wife, and then and my husband and I are both on different reality TV shows. So there's been some exposure to the kids, and people have asked them to audition. I think my son was asked to audition to be a quarterback on a Hallmark movie, something like that. And they're open to it. My little autistic guy would never hold still in front of the camera. So maybe over time, but he is a beautiful child. Thank you for saying that. My older boys have interest, but they're also kind of private. Like, it's very interesting because both their parents are out there publicly, but they don't even post on social media. And so both shows asked to start featuring the children, and you can imagine there were a lot of mixed feelings in that. So anyway, yeah.
How much does Real Housewives, how much do they encourage the drama and the conflict between the women?
Okay, so everyone asks me, is it fake? Is it staged? It's not staged, but it's highly, highly produced.
Yeah.
And you're very much encouraged to give your opinion. That's your job. You have to give your opinion. Whereas in real life, you would reserve your opinion, you would withhold it. You're not going to go in and say, I think you're wrong, I don't agree with that, to just someone you're talking to. So you avoid a lot of conflict. But on Housewives, that's your job. And so when you give your opinion, naturally issues erupt, And so it's highly, highly produced. And I think one of the best explanations I heard was a producer will take you aside, talk about a storyline or something that's going on, and really amp up your feelings and validate your feelings. So when you get in there, you feel very confident to talk about it. And they've done the same thing to the other person. So I always say it's the work of the devil, honestly. It's like, and again, like, I'm grateful for it. I watch it. I'm not above it, but I couldn't live in that. The constant.
Oh yeah, that must be brutal. Trying to just to put in the time alone, and then all that kind of energy, negative energy. Yes, it's negative.
It's constant negative energy, and they asked me to come back for season 4. A lot of people say, why didn't you come back? Why didn't you come back? Or they're crazy for not bringing you back. The truth is, they did ask me to come back. I chose not to do it. I've got a child with special needs that consumes so much of my energy. I couldn't use those energy reserves on something so frivolous as arguing with women. But it's funny because now my ex and his wife, who I co-parent with, are on a show called Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And I have to kind of see all the turmoil they go through now. And I try to, when it's helpful, I try to coach them, like, this is what I went through, I suggest this. And so it's kind of like my poor children have seen, like, both parents go through, like, the ups and downs of reality television. And
just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in, right?
Yes, of course. And so anyway.
Okay, so now we got the whole housewife. She's a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but now you've turned your life and you focus on a real passion in your life, which is metaphysics. You're getting a PhD in metaphysics with an emphasis on ufology, right? Now, how'd you get involved in this? Because you sent me some notes about your sister and you had an experience.
Yes, so I'm a closeted nerd. A lot of people don't expect that I'm going to be into the paranormal. They're like, wait, I thought she liked fashion. I thought she was superficial, just based off the image. And I really am a deeply spiritual person, and I've always been so curious about the mysteries of the universe my whole life. And I remember as a child watching Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, and just wondering, oh my gosh, what could that be? When you hear a ghost story or a UFO story or ESP, it used to just like, I used to watch that before bed and then I couldn't sleep. So then my sister and I have had a series of paranormal experiences throughout our life that we couldn't explain or understand. And so it just like fueled this curiosity I've always had. And I decided if there is science behind it, or if there is something more behind it, I want to understand it, or I want to try to explain it. And so I decided, I just was like, you know what, I don't care if people think I'm kooky. I love this stuff. And now it's undeniable. Something's going on, Luckily, I don't talk about it anymore and people think I'm cuckoo, because now like ufology is a real conversation in the world. And so I decided to enroll in school I had an opportunity come my way. Someone had suggested I potentially be a part of a television show that involves the paranormal. And I thought, well, instead of being an enthusiast, I should try to become an expert, because that's going to have more credibility. So I looked for a program. As you can imagine, it's very hard to find a ufology metaphysics program. And there are some metaphysical schools, and I found one that had offered an emphasis in ufology. And here I am. I'm a year and a half into my schooling, and it's really fun. I love it.
So what was the experience you had with your sister?
So for me, I've had a few experiences. I've seen on probably 2 different occasions, I've seen shadowy figures in my bedroom. You know what it is? I like to be objective. I'm not going to just automatically say it's a ghost. It's an alien, you know. I know what I saw. I don't know what it is. I try to be logical about it. So that was one of about 5 experiences. Those were a couple of about 5 experiences I've had. But my sister, so we live in Utah. Her experience is really cool. We live in Utah, and we're like right in between Skinwalker Ranch, Area 51, Area 52. It's a hotbed for paranormal activity. And she was driving down the freeway when she was like 19 years old, headed to Las Vegas at night. She had 3 people in the car. And all of a sudden, a massive UFO. They were kind of on that stretch as you're starting to get into the Nevada desert, kind of around Area 51.
Yeah.
A massive UFO comes over and hovers over her car. She said it was as big as a house, saucer-shaped, panels of lights. And, you know, this was probably 30 years ago, and so it was like so foreign. Nobody caught this stuff on film. You had just heard rumors about it, maybe on a Dateline show, or, you know, our window into the world was so narrow. And so this massive UFO hovers above them and just follows their car for about a minute. And then she said it wasn't scary. It's almost like she got this really peaceful feeling. And then it spun like a top really, really fast and shot straight up in the sky and totally disappeared. And then she looked over, and there were like 3 of them dancing over by the mountains. Same thing, they'd spin and then just disappear. So she gets to Vegas, where I was at the time. We were staying with my aunt, and was just like floored and flustered. And the whole group, you know, it was a cohesive experience. So she had witnesses, and they all just were like, we don't know what we just saw. And that fascinated me. And then since then, she's had experiences seeing, you know, what we would describe as a ghost or a spirit or an entity. I've seen things I can't explain. I did it was so weird for Housewives. It didn't make the show, but I hosted an alien party, and I wanted to try. Have you heard of Stephen Greer?
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to try his CE5 method. I thought it'd be fun television. May as well see what happens. It's like you get into this deep meditative state, and you're supposed to make human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials.
Right.
Like, it's far-fetched, but fun, right? So I invite half the cast, the ones with good energy, to my party, because you have to have good energy if you're going to manifest. And we went outside, did a 20-minute meditation, and like, Greer says if you open your camera, things will show up more. And I'll have to show you the photos, but we all opened our cameras, and it looked like a saucer. It was wild. And I can show you the photos, and we all saw it. And even the girls who are non-believers were just like, what is that? And then when you close your camera, there's nothing there. And we tried it before the meditation. We opened our cameras. Nothing was there. Post-meditation, opened it. It was like this saucer. And then in another girl's camera, it almost looked like a figure. It was very strange. And so even the producers were floored. And a couple of them went on a vacation to Joshua Tree, tried the CE5 method, and a UFO manifested, and they sent me the photo. So whether it's actual extraterrestrials or just the power of the mind and manifestation, because at the subatomic level, reality is not fixed, and with the observer effect, you can kind of see what you want to see,
right.
Whether it's that or actual extraterrestrials, I don't know. I leave room for whatever, but it was fascinating.
Yeah, I've had a couple of experiences too, and you're right. You have to have an open mind. It could be anything. A couple of questions for you now, because on your Instagram, the Angie Harrington Instagram, I know you have some videos, I guess you'd call them, about the UFO contacts, different kind of paranormal experiences. Do you have this stuff on there? You tell me right now?
No, I haven't gone into my private stories. I think I made a reel a long time ago showing those photos, but I ended up deleting it because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go take my brand there.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it because these photos are so fascinating. And in fact, I can, while we're talking, they're right here in my phone. I can pull them up. But I thought about it, but right now I kind of started with, on my Instagram page, I decided that I wanted to just like do an introductory view of ufology. So I started with like the most popular basic stories that most people aren't familiar with. I mean, I've obviously heard for years because this stuff fascinates me. But yeah, so anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, some of those
Trying
pictures
to find my folder for you, Ed. Oh, here's one of them. Kate, this is wild. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Look at the top.
No way, man. Oh, wait,
Doesn't that look like eyes up top? Like right there?
Whatever it is, it's definitely something. That's not some...
That doesn't just show up in your camera, and then that light down there.
Yeah, that's something for sure.
That was one of the photos, and then let me show you the other photos because
got an
there was
exclusive
like
here on the Opperman Report. Angie Harrington.
You are.
It's actual UFO experience.
And this is how I knew Housewives wasn't for me because they cut the whole scene.
Oh, really?
And I was like,
oh, man.
we got quote unquote UFOs on camera. But there wasn't enough drama, I would imagine, that they cut the scene. Now look at this.
You got to be kidding me.
What is that?
Yeah, what is that? That's true. Yeah, what is that? It's not.
It wasn't there before when we.
It's not a bug. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
There was something to it. I don't know what it was, but anyway.
Well, did you look into that case in Las Vegas just recently about the family found a giant alien in their backyard and the cops saw UFOs that day? Did you look into that one?
No, I didn't. I remember when that went on. I wasn't in school at the time, so I didn't have the tools to like learn how to like properly research.
Yeah.
I don't rule out psychological operations.
Okay.
You know, I'm not saying it wasn't extraterrestrial, but extraterrestrial is not my go-to. So roughly 85 to 92% of cases can be explained, whether it's a UFO sighting, an alien. That felt it just felt too obvious to be true. There was a part of me that feels like it was a psyop. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
I've heard suspicions about it too as well, you know?
Yeah.
But who knows? I didn't look into it that closely.
I don't know either. I mean, who knows? I do believe it's a combination of interdimensional beings,
right,
advanced military tech, or psychological operations, and or otherworldly beings, actual extraterrestrials. You know, I do think there's like this blend, and it's hard to know who, what, where,
and even time travel could be affected too. But
absolutely.
Now, what about you? Talk about opening yourself up, manifesting, and focusing. And intent to draw these things in. Aren't you concerned that you could be attracting benevolent or malevolent entities towards you?
Yeah, story of my life, doing this work, and also, you know, having that. I don't want to use the word programming because that sounds negative, but you know, the belief system I grew up in. I grew up Mormon. I'm no longer Mormon, but we were always taught, you know, don't mess with that stuff.
Right.
So I think for me, I don't think I would ever participate in a seance or something that felt like ghosts. For some reason, this felt different because it felt like extraterrestrials. But then I realized over time, I am opening myself up to potential issues. And I do think there are trickster spirits that can manifest as an alien or a UFO, or, you know, I don't rule that out either. I think there's a realm, I know there's a realm we don't understand, and it could be more powerful than we realize. So I'm a lot more cautious now. I had a guy who channels tell me that the spirits told him that I was supposed to be trained to be a channeler. And I just couldn't get, and I'm not saying he doesn't have that ability, I don't know, but I just couldn't get behind it. It felt like I was opening myself up to something that I couldn't control, you know?
Yeah. It's a delicate balance there. You know, you gotta
Very.
be careful. Yeah. No, so what kind of faith are you now? If you left the Mormons, what are you doing now?
I'm Christian, just non-denominational. I'm a little disenchanted with religion, to be honest, for various reasons. But I have plenty of Mormon friends and family. It's by far the predominant religion, or the dominant religion here, and I respect, what people believe, but for me, I couldn't make sense of it anymore. So
With such a focus on like arts and entertainment and stuff like that, why did you stay in Utah? Why wouldn't you go to California and New York?
well, so my husband and I are in LA part-time.
Okay.
He runs a tech company out there, but I was a single mom who was co-parenting with children, and so, you have to stay in Utah. But I did think about it many times, and Utah is actually a very big dance state. Like so many of the Dancing with the Stars professionals come out of Utah, those dance reality shows. So I was able to pursue dancing here. And we do have quite a bit of acting here and Disney brings in a lot of films, but I think had I not had kids and gotten married so young, I probably would have moved to LA and pursued that more. And then reality TV ended up coming here. Now it's a hotbed. They're doing so many shows. It's wild. So
yeah, Salt Lake City is one of the most popular Real Housewives, right? It's one of the,
it is. It's
think,
like the
right?
GOAT now. Yeah. I mean, everybody loves Salt Lake City. And then The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is Hulu's #1 reality show.
That's on Hulu.
Their ratings are off the charts. I mean, they've surpassed Kardashians now. I think it's just because we've got such a unique culture. It's like you've got all these wonderful Christian people who at the same time are so perfection driven. And it's a culture like, until I was removed from it, I didn't even see it. And now I can see it, but I still have a hard time because like I'm a part of it too. That was how you grow up stays with you. It's in your DNA. I come from pioneer stock that followed Joseph Smith and Brigham Young to Utah. And so you start to realize how perfection driven it is and how unique it is. And I don't know, it's a very strange, lovely culture all in one.
Are you following this stuff? I'm no expert on it for sure, but there's this trend on YouTube and TikTok and stuff where they talk about like the Mormon temple, right? You look at that thing, the way it was built. How did they build that back in those days? Some guys on horse and buggies, with hammers and chisels. How was that possible?
I know, it's a great question. I'm not an expert on that either, but I mean, I think about it. If you go to Europe and you look at the cathedrals, those are so much more intricate. It does kind of make sense that, okay, hundreds of years later, we could build the Mormon temples. But I think it took, I don't even want to guess, but it took a long, long time. And whether you like Brigham Young or not, because did you see American Primeval?
No, I don't even know what that is.
Okay, well, he was really represented as a bad guy. And look, in my opinion, he's a bit of both. He was a good guy and a bad guy. But he was the man for the job. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's like any leader of a very successful company now has pros and cons. There's just certain character flaws that come with that type of a personality. And so he was definitely the man for the job, and he made it happen. But it's interesting because sometimes I wonder, I'm like, were they using, if you look at Mormon temples, there's occult symbology all over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so I'm like, well, were they using the occult to help them? I have no idea, That's just a thought. But I think so many Christians here are so... They don't, if you don't know what to look for in symbology, you can miss it. I would have had no idea had I not studied that stuff. And, it's just kind of like, now, don't you wonder why there's a pentagram on your temple? That doesn't really track with the Christian temple, So anyway, but I will say that most of the people are very good, lovely people.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of people don't realize, it's what's right in front of them,
Yes, and once you know what to look for, you see it everywhere.
Then, what was your education before you got into all this? Before you got into all this metaphysics, the PhD in metaphysics? What was your college education?
So I went to UVU, where unfortunately the Charlie Kirk shooting just was. It's down the street.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then I went there for a couple years. Then I went to BYU, which is the Mormon church college, Brigham Young University, for about a semester. Then I got married. My husband played football, so we had to move to kind of accommodate that. And then when we came back and I got divorced, I went back. So I ended up leaving college to kind of accommodate the marriage and the job and all that. And then when we came back, I ended up going back to UVU as a single mom. And I studied, my major changed. It was dance, history. And then when I was single mom, I thought, well, I have to be practical. I went into communications. And I didn't really end up using any of it, but I'm grateful for my college experience. I had an entrepreneurial spirit, so I started fashion influencing, and it worked out. So.
And what about fashion designing? Because you definitely have an incredible fashion sense.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. I thought about starting a clothing line for a long time, and then I had a child with special needs, and that I just can't give, what I would like to. But now that he's growing up and in school more full time, that's when I started taking on more studies in the paranormal field. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's not off the table, but we'll see. I'm kind of focused on the paranormal side of things. I've been talking to different people about potentially television show development, podcasts, also like presenting at some of these paranormal conventions, things like that. Just kind of starting to get my name out there. There's not a lot of women in this space.
True.
And so I think it would be nice to have.
Yeah, you could be the new Linda Moulton Howe, right? Because she was
That's
she was
what
a
someone
pageant.
said the other day.
Yeah,
They're
she was a pageant
Linda
girl herself. Yeah.
I think Linda Moulton Howe's the only one, and so I was like, well, okay, she's the pioneer. I definitely know her work. So, and my friends own Skinwalker Ranch,
Right.
and so I've been able to kind of go to the ranch and like kind of see what they do. The way, they have a show. I think their show's #1 on History Channel. And it's been fun to kind of chat with them and talk about the process and how it works and, kind of educating myself in that world. So,
well, tell the audience, what is Skinwalker Ranch? And when you go there, do you feel something? I know I can feel things. I know that. Do you feel something when you go there?
I did. Skinwalker Ranch is the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on Earth. It's a ranch in eastern Utah, I believe. It's about 2.5 hours from where I live. And it's just a hotbed for paranormal activity. There's stories and stories and stories. And I think the tradition or the legend is that there were 2 Native American tribes arguing, and one of them cursed their land, and that was Skinwalker Ranch. I could have slaughtered that. Something like that. And ever since then, it's just been a hotbed for paranormal activity. Based off the conversations I've had with the owners and experiencers and things like that, I tend to think there's some sort of like a portal, or the dimensions are thin there, for lack of a better term, and things kind of come in and out. Because there was an eyewitness that did watch something come out of an opening in the sky. Now, assuming, you have to take stories with a grain of salt, they're not proof, but you just try to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And it's a fascinating place. Now, I went into it so excited. I'd always wanted to go there. And I just prayed and like really worked on positive energy. My husband was with me. He's a massive skeptic. And he grew up really rough. And so he views the world differently than me. He's skeptical of everything and everyone, which has very much served him in his life and his career. I tend to be the optimist, and everyone's great till they prove me wrong, and I've had to learn the hard way several times. But we went into it with very different energies, and he's the one who had the paranormal experience while we were there, which was fascinating. There was an energy there, but I think I was like a little naively optimistic, And so we were there with a group, the owners, the staff that manages the ranch, and then the cast of the TV show Skinwalker Ranch, and then we just happened to be there with the 9 Inch Nails band as well, because I guess they watched the show and they're enthusiasts, and so Brandon, the owner, invited them to come and invited us to come at the same time. So we've got this like group of all kind of different people, and I'm kind of going, well, these dark artists, if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen to them. Right? And they were lovely, nothing against them, but they are just like, their music is very dark and creative, and they're geniuses at what they do. But I was just like, well, it's going to go down, we've got rock stars here. Well, the only person who experienced anything was my husband. And so we told Brandon, the owner, and he said that's very common, that the skeptic, I think for the majority of us, we are all believers. And Brandon said it's very common that the skeptic gets messed with on the ranch,
Right.
you know? And he said there was a story once where a UFO showed up. He was there as, I think it was a government scientist and his bodyguard. And the bodyguard was this big, gruff, motorcycle type dude that was very skeptical. And a UFO showed up, and that dude like passed out and had to go to the hospital for weeks. And the rest of them were fine. And he said it typically is the person who believes the least. It's like the ranch is saying, hey, we're real, we exist, don't mess with us.
So then what was your husband's experience? What happened?
So we were all, at the end of the tour, we were all standing on the mesa looking over, all of us in a big line. And somebody, he was on the end, and somebody, he said, grabbed him and kind of shook him to move around him.
Really?
And he thought it was me, like, get out of the way, you know, I got to see this. And he looked over, and I was the closest person to him, 7 feet away. And so he just, something grabbed him and shook him, and he was just like, oh, you know. And so, yeah, it wasn't anything like over the top, but it was definitely something.
That's enough, yeah. But what are
It scared him.
Yeah, oh yeah. Now, what are some of the famous incidents though that made Skinwalker Ranch notorious? What are some of the things?
Yeah, so there was a family that lived there. I forget their last name, just salt of the earth ranchers. You know, they weren't there for any particular reason. And I think like right away when they moved in, they had gone to the grocery store, put the groceries out, go to their room, come back out to put the groceries away, and all the cupboards and drawers are open. And they were just like, whoa, like what is happening here? Something's going on. Same family, I think, and again, these stories are, I haven't researched these stories in a while, so I could be messing up a few details. I think maybe a year later or something, their dogs, it's nighttime, their dog sees something, runs after it, and I think the dog ended up dying, and they described something that was like a werewolf, where it stood up like on its hind legs and they shot at it, something along those lines. They saw a portal open and something that looked like another werewolf climb out. And I think just tons of orbs, UFOs, paranormal activity. I think they got so spooked, they were like, we're out. Then they sold it. I believe that's when it changed hands to Bigelow, the billionaire out of Vegas. He did a ton of experiments, spent a bunch of money, and it's all declassified. My friend Brandon bought it from Bigelow, and I don't believe Brandon got access to all, and I think he spent millions and millions. So it would have been nice if he got access to all those classified documents, but unfortunately he didn't. So he has brought his own research team in and has to kind of start from ground zero.
That's interesting. Bigelow was in a relationship with Linda Moulton Howe.
He was?
Yes, they were dating, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know all the gossip.
Totally
I knew Art Bell, you know.
Sense.
Yeah, I knew Art
your
Bell.
vibe attracts your tribe. I think that's why we're such great friends with Brandon and Kristen who own the ranch, because there's not a lot of people who want to talk about weird stuff like we do. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of weird stuff, now, you said you were down there, you went to college where Charlie Kirk just got shot. So what are you hearing about that? Any kind of gossip or anything?
You know, all I know is I know some people whose children were there live when it happened, because it's a very popular college in our community. So, of course, I'm going to cross paths with people whose children were there. Obviously, it was devastating. The president of the college is my neighbor. I know it was her birthday that day, unfortunately, and she had just lost her husband. And we serve on a board there for folks with cognitive disabilities who get the opportunity to go to college. So we're very involved in the college, and just devastating. Now, more on a conspiratorial level, I think a lot of people feel very suspicious of like, is there something more to it than meets the eye? You know, I know there's a lot of like chatter about the governor, and something doesn't sit right with people there. I've met the governor, seemed nice to me. I don't know. You know, I do listen to Candace Owens, so it's fun to kind of, I don't necessarily agree with everything she says, but nobody can deny she's good at her job and entertaining. And so I've kind of listened to the conspiracies, and a lot of stuff isn't adding up. Last Sunday, we drove past the county jail where they're holding the suspect. and there was press everywhere. So it's, I spent the summer in LA because we're in LA a ton. We were right in Hollywood. And I came home to Happy Valley. That's what they call Utah Valley. And I'm like, who'd have thought I'd be safer in the heart of Hollywood than coming home to Happy Valley? And there was this shooting. And now it's like unleashed something in Utah where my son's school had like a gun threat the other day. And there's like a new thing popping up all the time in Utah. I don't know if it's a distraction. I don't know. I listen to everything and then I kind of sort of come to my own conclusion. I don't know. To be determined.
I lived in Vegas for the October 1st shooting in Vegas, the Mandalay Bay shooting. Yeah. And like you said, when you're there, all kind of stuff is going on that people don't realize, that people on the other end of the country don't hear about. Like my daughter's school was closed that week twice because of shooting threats. Right. And when the press comes to town,
kind of a ripple effect.
Right. Yeah. And when the press comes to town, they take over. They have a little camp that they set up, with their trucks, and they're in all the bars, they're taking up all the hotel rooms. They come in, they take over. Yeah. And they control the story.
Absolutely. No, it's wild. It's everyone, there's just a somber energy. My son plays quarterback, and the day after the shooting, he had a game, and the whole stadium just felt weird. We did the Pledge of Allegiance. It was just heavy. My son was not in his rhythm. Like I could tell it affected him and how he played the game, and you just feel it. There's a tangible energy in the community, and like I said, gun threats, and all of a sudden, like I think there was a TikTok about my son's school being shot up, and so they had to like warn all the parents and close it down, and it's just weird here right now. This was literally one of the safest places you could have lived in America. So it's wild it happened here.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm taping tomorrow with Kit Clarenberg about the Salt Lake City shooting, and I made a joke. I says, "Well, I'm talking one of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We should have a panel." And here you are. You probably know more than he does. So,
well, it's funny because I haven't like deep dived the Charlie Kirk thing, but all I know is like kind of what the basics of what I've seen, and then just talking to people around here. And obviously UVU is very upset and just trying to pick up the pieces. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like there's more than what meets the eye from my perspective, but I don't know. I really don't.
It's too soon to really. You can't start jumping. You can't jump.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it does feel like some of the facts are a little suspicious.
Well, then what about Utah? Because you mentioned here that it's a hotbed for paranormal, but it's also kind of a hotbed for CIA, right? Like it wasn't what's his name, Howard Hughes. He had all CIA Mormon guys working for him, and good old what's his name. Robert Mayhew, so what about that? Do you see that when you're over there?
I mean, growing up, it was so normal for BYU students to be recruited into the CIA. Like I didn't even know that was strange. That I grew up about a mile from the university, and I still live about a mile from the university, and I just thought that was normal. The explanation they gave, well, they're obedient. They all speak a different language because they serve Mormon missions, and they're honest because that's how you're trained as a Mormon. It's the for lack of a better term, I don't mean to say mind control, but the mind control is powerful in the Mormon church, and that's not to say members are I don't want to imply they're being mind controlled. They believe it wholeheartedly, but it's very strong, and they know what they're doing in getting people to be obedient and comply. And I've always been a free thinker, and that just doesn't fit with their religion,
Yeah.
And so I think it was kind of equal parts like they're honest, their minds are taken over a little bit, that they're obedient, I should use the word obedient, and they speak another language from their Mormon missions. And then, you dig a little deeper and you start to realize how tied the CIA is to the Mormon church. And it's pretty interesting. So, we had Howard Hughes going through here working with, I believe, Bob Gay. My dear friend Heather Gay was married to one of his grandsons. It's a very prominent name here. And then as you like pull those threads and you start to realize how they developed Las Vegas with the Mormons. And,
right. They still control the airport in Las Vegas. Yeah.
And then, right. And then the Freemasonry, like how our leaders of the church, our founders, Joseph Smith was a 32 or 33 degree Mason. Brigham Young was a Mason. You know, it's the symbology of masonry is all over our temple in downtown Salt Lake, and you just start to put pieces of the puzzle together, and you go, "What does this mean?" You know, I can't say for sure. I would say the majority of Freemasons and Mormons are great people. You know, love nothing but lovely, great people. But you do hear all the conspiracy theories, and you talk to people who claim otherwise, and you just start to go, maybe there's something to it. I don't know.
And there's a danger, too, going down these conspiracy roads. It can drive you crazy. I got a lot of crazy listeners, you know. They're just nice people, but they just got mental problems, you know. And this recent anti-Semitism that is just getting so ugly. And we're like,
right.
It's becoming an obsession in some areas. It's just really difficult to, scary. You know, it's scary where we're going with all this.
I agree. You can't make blanket statements on communities. You know, the Jewish people are lovely people. You may not like their leader or their government. That's completely separate from the people as a whole. Same with Mormons. Same with, you know, any race, any minority group. You cannot make a statement as a whole. You have to look at the individual. And I think you're right. It gets really dangerous.
Yeah, even 30% of the Israeli citizens don't agree with the war in Gaza or support the Netanyahu government.
Right.
Oh, my God. But now what about this guy, George Zinn? Now, you see this local gadfly character. You see him pictured with Giuliani. You know, what's going on with this guy?
It's wild.
Yeah. Were you familiar with him before this?
No, I have no idea who he was. I mean, there's a lot of people here, and I've lived here almost my whole life, and I know a lot of people. I've never heard of this guy. Part of me, you know, my conspiratorial mind was like, is he an MK Ultra, you know, decoy, or is he just a passionate advocate that shows up to everything? It feels very suspicious that he would claim it. It felt like a decoy, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, he even said that he was attracting attention to himself for the shooter to get away.
Why would he do that? Why would he think that quickly to do that? That was very suspicious.
Especially when he's got child porn on his phone. Wouldn't you think, hey, let me keep a low profile here?
Well, we've also heard all the stories about how sometimes child porn is put on somebody's phone as well, so there's an excuse for an arrest. I don't know. That's conspiratorial too. I don't know. Like, it could be exactly what they're telling us it is, or there could be this whole intricate background we know nothing about. I do know with a lot of these conspiracies over time, you know, when you look at the Manson murders and things like that, you start to go, oh, there was a heavy involvement, you know, from different entities, but time will tell.
Yeah, go back and Sunday mornings, I play the old Mae Brussels show, and she was on that Manson stuff way back in the 70s. She was talking about all the connections, Manson and intelligence and stuff. Yeah, I know.
And now it's pretty much undeniable. Yeah, you know.
Now, Angie Harrington, we are out of time, but you go to Angie Harrington on Instagram. Great stuff on there. She's doing these little videos now about UFOs and things. And you can find her, too, on TikTok at Angie.Harrington, number 2. So, Angie Harrington, I had so much fun with you today, and I knew you'd be fun. But what do you want to leave us with?
I want to leave us, you know, I'm the first to say I love a good conspiracy and going down a rabbit hole, but let's keep in mind, let's try to love each other. Let's not marginalize minority groups. I think, you know, I would imagine you have a large Christian audience.
Oh, yeah.
I think the simple as Christ said, love thy neighbor, love thy God. Let's love each other. Let's not get radical here and lump certain groups into being a bad force without the knowledge. Anyway, I just would love to see our community and our nation come together in love.
Yeah, I know. We have some dark times. We're in the darkest time of my life that I've ever seen. The separation of this country, the adversarial politics and stuff. And I don't see it getting any better either. I think good times may be behind us. But Angie Harrington, thank you so much, man. Thank you so. I know this is going to be fun, but thank you so much.
We can do it again, Ed.
Oh yeah, open invitation. Anytime you want to come back.
Okay, awesome.